Hello and welcome to Finance Rules. I am Leah and today I'm going to be talking to you about, you guessed it, NNDM. So I really wanted to point out some really big points that was made in the recent Yoav interview. It's Yoav, right? Is it Yoav or Yoav? I think it's Yoav. So he came out with an interview and he gave a lot of interesting tidbits that I want to share with you guys. Namely, what is NNDM's value proposition? Who is the competition? What are their plans with all this cash that they've gotten from all these direct offerings? And what are the types of companies that they're looking to acquire? What are their revenue streams and what is their future growth? So grab on to your cup of tea, or if you're like me, grab on to some grapes and let's go. Okay, so the first few minutes of this interview, Yoav talks about what NNDM does, the 3D printing, the PCB industry. So if you're interested in that, I will link this interview in the description below so you can check that out. But today I'm just going to be covering the highlights. And the first highlight is that Yoav compares NNDM with other traditional European 3D printing companies. And there was a case study done that they printed something and NNDM printed something, and it took them 4 months to print it, and it took NNDM with the DragonFly, it took 7 to 10 days. So listen.
Yeah, the prototyping, instead of taking one of our customers in Europe, Hensoldt, they developed a very sophisticated PCB in-house, and they decided to compare. So they gave it to two groups. One group did it traditional way, and one group did it with our machine. The difference was a traditional way took the development and the prototyping 4 months. With our machine, it took about 7 to 10 days.
Wow.
And that's revolutionary.
Okay, so the second tidbit is, what is Nano Dimension going to be doing with all this cash that they've received from all these direct offerings? Which in this interview, it says 400 million, but now it's over 600 million on the direct offering that closes today.
Okay, we have a very, very clear direction and plan, which obviously changed and developed over the last 2 months during the corona, as we realized that the market is actually supporting us so strongly. So now, with the amount of money you have mentioned, we intend to do really two things. We intend to use part of it for acquisitions of companies that are synergistic with our technology and with our markets.
Did you hear that? That was plural. Companies. Companies synergistic with NNDM. So they're not just looking to acquire one company. That's plural, companies.
Obviously, we don't have competition yet, but we have what could be competition. So we intend to defend ourselves that way and improve our product by buying these companies. And we're talking together with Needham and Company, which are M&A advisors. We're talking, I've spoken with 35, 40 out of 65 companies I looked at over the last 4 months.
So Yoav says that he has spoken with 35 to 40 companies out of the 65 in the past 4 months. So if it took him 4 months to talk to, let's say, 35 out of 65, my guess is that he's halfway there to making a conclusion of which specific companies he wants to buy. But since there's multiple, he might, have a few nailed down, but maybe he's going to buy another few and it's not for certain yet.
So that will be a use of proceeds of about half of that money over time, obviously, in the right price.
Half of the money. So he says from half of the money at the 400 million mark, so not even today with the 650 million plus cash that they have, out of half of the 400 million, that's what they're going to use to acquire other companies. So we're looking at about $200,000 in acquisitions.
The second half is we are accelerating our product development. We decided that rather than investing and over-investing in marketing and sales right now, when the market is really not there and the corona is keeping our customers at home, and this is not software business, they can't work from home if they're working in a laboratory. And so any money we spend on that will be wasted until corona subsides. So we estimate the corona will subside in 2-3 quarters. So in this time, we are investing the rest of the money, and we're not going to finish it. We have enough for the next 5 to 10 years. But
he just kind of had like a sly remark there. He said, we're not going to finish it for another 5 to 10 years. So with the money that they've raised, they won't even go through it all for the next 5 to 10 years. They're going to have still cash left over. So they have more than enough. So this tells me no more direct offerings. But he doesn't say it, but that to me means Nano Dimensions has more than enough cash on hand to last them the next decade.
But we are going to accelerate dramatically the product development. We will get to the inflection point, which takes valuation of the company and revenue 10 times. And the inflection point is when our machines, which are now in development, are getting into production, not only prototyping. The minute our machines start to produce larger volumes of high performance electronic device, HiPads, we will be in a position where desktop publishing was 20 years ago. We're changing the industry, and more importantly, we're making it clean industry, environmental friendly, and being able to reshore it back to the United States and Europe, where $70 billion of it, or 65, is in the Far East.
So doesn't this kind of sound like Tesla? Clean energy, this, that, bringing it home to the US. No wonder everyone's thinking that NNDM is like the next Tesla. So the big thing with this whole thing that's going on in the world, can't say the word, basically NNDM has had a really rough time selling their DragonFlies to customers because they have to deliver it, they have to install it, they have to get guys going in and out to fix things, troubleshoot, and that can't happen during this time. So everything has been put on hold, and it's just kind of like the lava is brewing in the volcano and it like wants to erupt. Like it's so ready to play the game, to sell the crap out of the DragonFly, but it can't because it can't go out there and, do the proper installations and like mass produce and all this. So Yoav is really smart. He's doing things a lot in-house. With the nanos, for example, he's printing for companies in-house and sending it to them. And he's selling ink. And he's selling this and that and, agreements. And instead of just selling the DragonFly, that's not just their core business. And they're looking at developing more products, better products, so that once this is all done, they are ready to go to market. So at this part of the interview, Yoav says about the competition and how there really isn't any other competition, but it's kind of bold to say that. So he kind of, treads lightly on that statement. The fact of the matter is the other competitors are still running like analog, and NNDM is like digital. So it's very disruptive. It's very, evolutionary. This is the whole reason why Kathy is so big on NNDM. This is why she keeps getting ARC to buy more and more shares of NNDM, because as more and more time progresses, NNDM proves that they are the biggest and really only competitor in the PCB 3D printing world.
I believe about 2 years, a year and a half to 2.5 years of runway, but I don't like businesses that don't have competition. So to say no competition, yes, if there's a $70 billion market, of course there's a competition, but the competition is the old market, the old way of doing things, which means if you look at a picture, if you research it on the internet of a printed circuit board manufacturing facility, you'll see an old factory. It looks like a printing house, the way a printing house of newspapers used to look. Huge machines, very expensive, very sophisticated, but it's an analog process. This is our competition today. We're going to disrupt this industry and change it. So I consider them as competition. We need to educate the market, and the other competition that will use technologies similar to ours, I believe, is about 2 years away.
Okay. And one of the most...
So for you all there that don't really know about NNDM and, you decided to come across my video, this is NNDM's value proposition from the CEO himself, Yoav Stern.
Okay, the value proposition is the following. You are investing in a company that has a very, very strong balance sheet with basically minimal to no risk of not being able to fulfill the plan. Point number one, whichever the plan is, which I'll talk in a second. So you're no risk on the downside. $420 million in cash is, we need less than that, and we have spare in that. Point number two, you're investing in a company at a valuation that's relatively low, comparing to what will happen once we get the inflection point, which is not 10 years from now. It's, quarters and a year and a half from now, where the numbers of size of market and size of our revenue is going to go above $100 million. If you look at present companies' valuations, you will see that the valuation of our company at the inflection point will be closer to a few $1 billion. Now the company is valuation at the price where it is today, give or take $600-700 million. So you're investing at a relatively low valuation. Technology that's proven. There's 60 machines already in the market with names of customers that some of them I gave you and the others most of our investors will know. So it's proven. It is evolving into a better technology where the risks are not technological, but rather engineering of developing a production machine. And you're getting in while the company has enough resources to fulfill this plan. That's the value proposition.
So this is the part that gets really interesting. Yoav discusses what are the criteria that they're looking for to acquire a company.
Okay, we're looking at three types. You're absolutely right. One type is large companies with relatively large revenue base, which are serving the higher side of the PCB market, which was left in the United States and in Europe. As I've mentioned, 85% of it, mostly lower part of the market, moved to the East. These companies are serving the same customers we are serving, and they are basically developing high-end PCBs based on traditional technology. So we're looking to buy one or two like this in the United States and in Europe, which will be serving us as the tool to access a very large customer base in a traditional manner, and slowly we will populate that with our machines. Very, very.
So they're looking at three types of companies. The first type is a large company that can branch out into the US and the European markets, and they have a strong revenue base, and they are serving large PCB customers that Nano Dimensions also partly services to. Okay, so let's go on to the second type of company.
Very attractive. The second kind of companies are companies that are much, much smaller, but are developing very advanced technology in 3D printing and additive manufacturing engineering for electronics. And those companies have technologies that we identified that can be integrated into our future machines. So instead of developing it ourselves, we potentially will buy one or two of them. And the third kind of companies.
Okay, so the second type of company that they're also buying one or two of is much smaller. You know, they're not a large company like the first one. They're very small companies, plural, he said, 1 to 2, that have advanced technology in 3D printing, that instead of NNDM working hard, paying a lot of money to develop themselves, they will acquire that company that already knows how to do it so that they can add that technology into their future machines.
We're looking at companies that are supplying equipment for electronics to the same customers we supply what we supply, but that equipment is a bit different. It's testing equipment, very sophisticated optical equipment to control the processes. So it is equipment suppliers of advanced technology, but not the same like our machine, however, to exactly the same customers and production processes.
Finally.
Okay, so the third type of companies Yoav is looking to acquire are companies that are supplying equipment for electronics to the exact same NNDM customers that they're already servicing, but now they're going to have testing equipment, optical equipment, in order to control the process of 3D printing. Okay, so now the moment you all investors have been waiting for is projections from the CEO of NNDM of what his growth is going to look like for NNDM in the coming year. If there's no, thing out there, I'm not allowed to say the word. If there's no thing out there, what will be the growth of NNDM?
There's totally no effect. There's no tail. I would say that our revenue, which jumped 40% into 2019 and was going to jump above that in 2020, will probably jump close to 100% in rate per quarter once that happens.
And I want to note that ARC Investments.
Did you just hear that? If there's no thing out there, he projects that NNDM is going to have 100% quarterly revenue growth. This is amazing. Aren't you guys glad that you're on this train? It's amazing. I love it. All right, so I hope you enjoyed my video. It was kind of neat watching it together, sharing my thoughts and whatnot and having a cup of tea. And that will be all from me with NNDM for 2020. On to the new year. The price action today was a little bit interesting. To be honest, I sold a small position that I have just because I think it's going to correct maybe towards, maybe around $8, maybe the high 7s. And if you can get in the high 7s, it's a really sweet spot because basically ARC is averaging in the 7s of their full rounded cost. So this Friday, the market's closed tomorrow, I don't know, we might see a little bit of a bloodbath just because it's the end of the week, end of the month, end of the year. So, you know, we might see some red tomorrow overall, but maybe next week it'll jump again. So we'll have to see. Stay tuned in to my channel, subscribe below with the notifications, because I'm going to be coming out with a few videos. I'm going to be doing a video on stop buying certain stocks, my top 2021 SPACs, and my #1 ETF pick for 2021. So stay tuned for those videos, and I'll see you guys in the new year. Bye!